Canadian government to introduce online hate speech regulations in early current year. They got their priorities, huh? Canada's ruling Liberal Party has made tackling online hate speech a major priority. I'm going to take this opportunity to reiterate what I've said before, but the time for talking with these lunatics is over. It's done. There's no point in talking to them anymore. And before anyone says I'm trying to instigate violence or something, that's not what I mean at all. All I mean is just stop talking to them. Anytime you encounter a triggered snowflake on social media, just block them. Don't respond to them. Don't retweet them. Don't interact with these lunatics in literally any way. Just instantly block them. And it's important to block them because muting isn't enough anymore. If you just mute them, they will still stalk you and report you. Muting was my preferred method for the better part of the past decade because it was funny to me, the thought that sometimes they spent days screaming into the void before they realized you never even heard or saw anything they were doing. That's hilarious. But in this day and age where you can be permanently suspended, you can be banned from these platforms for the slightest offense. Block every single triggered regressive you come across. Don't just mute them, block them. Because then if they still want to keep stalking you and find reasons to report you and get you banned, they're actually going to have to go out of their way to create another account and do it. But most of them will usually just move on to the next target to be outraged by. Just stop interacting with them. They want to make your speech illegal. Stop talking to them. Cut them out of your life everywhere you can. Treat them exactly like I treat most of my coworkers. I only interact with them when we need to get work done together, and then we each go our separate ways. But in this case, these NPCs, they're not useful for anything. There's no reason to even interact with them. So as soon as someone shows up in your timeline getting triggered by something you did or said, block them. Now they don't have to see what triggered them anymore. Everyone's happy, right? Stop interacting with them. They've made it clear that they don't want to have a conversation. They don't want to talk. They want to talk at you and have you listen. Anything else, and they're going to report you and get you suspended. So just stop talking to them. You gain nothing interacting with these lunatics. They want to segregate the internet. They want safe spaces. They want to sanitize everything. Fine, give them what they want. Imagine if every one of us just blocked them. We could stay on social media like Twitter and Facebook and just have all these lunatics blocked. They'll never see us. We'll never see them. Problem fucking solved. But if you are, and don't respond to them in any way, not even to be cute, because at first I thought if someone was triggered by something I write, oh, I'm so sorry. Here, I'll make it so you can never see my stuff again. Block. Don't even respond like that. Nothing. Give them nothing. Because when they're showing up to pick a fight with you, it's a trap. They want to trap you into saying something that they can report you for and get you banned. So as soon as you see them, just instant block. Don't talk to them. Don't interact with them. As soon as you come across their post, block. And this problem's going to work itself out. Because once they don't see us anymore, once they have to actually go out of their way to hunt for us and to find out what we're saying, they're much more likely to get triggered by what another regressive said first. Remember that. It's a pretty nice way to stay under their radar. They're not even going to see you unless they go looking for you. But in the meantime, their own people are constantly triggering them. So make them eat their own. Use social media as a way to drive people, to vet people that you want to invite into your private communities, and leave all the talking and conversation to private DMs. Start talking even among your own friends on platforms that these lunatics can't see. Completely disappear from their lives. And then wait until they eat each other alive. That's what we need to do. Tangent aside, let's resume. The Canadian government plans to introduce comprehensive regulations that target hate speech on social media platforms. Well, what about blackface? Now, the regulations will reportedly be tabled in current year and are being introduced to promote safer and more inclusive online environment. Yeah. It's going to have the exact opposite effect. There's nothing inclusive about constantly banning one side of a discussion. All that's going to do is make the other side agree. Like, you know what? We need segregation. You're right. You can have your quote unquote safe space over there. We're going to stay out of it, but we're going to fucking block and gatekeep you out of ours in return. You've made it clear that you don't want to coexist with us, so go away. You're not welcome here anymore. All this is going to do is it's going to split all these platforms, which is a good thing. I do not want to interact with these regressives anymore. I want them gone. As soon as we block all of them out of existence, like, yeah, let's segregate ourselves away from them. Problem solved. Everyone wins, right? Well, I say everyone wins, knowing full well we're the host and they're the parasite, and they're going to notice real quickly that they need us. We don't need them. But once they finally realize that, it's too late. They're never going to be allowed back in. That's my plan right now. A briefing note on the new regulations from Canadian Heritage Minister Stephen Guilbeault's department said, "We are working to introduce regulations to reduce the spread of illegal content, including hate speech, illegal ideas and thoughts." They're literally thought policing. In order to promote a safer and more inclusive online environment, we want to protect Canadians online. Teach Canadians how to block. Oh, hey, look, this guy's triggered by something I did. Block. Good. Now he doesn't have to see my stuff anymore. Look at how I helped. I made him happier. The briefing added that social media platforms can also be used to threaten, intimidate, bully, and harass people, or used to promote racist, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, misogynistic, homophobic views that target communities, but people's safety and risk, or put people's safety at risk. Put people's safety and risk. Come on, guys. It's at risk. And undermine Canada's social cohesion or democracy. Yeah. Social cohesion. Oh, those of you guys who've been with me for years know that this phrase, it has a very special place in my heart. Because I'm thinking back to the days when I was in college and I was taking criminal justice classes. And this is when I realized that criminal justice is nothing I want to get into anymore. I was considering it as like a backup career for software development. And this one class, this one single class turned me off of that. And I need to thank this professor again. And this was an adjunct professor who was actually a practicing lawyer. He was just teaching classes at night. That's supplemental income, I guess. He was actually in the system that he was teaching us about. And he said flat out, you guys are going to have to accept that quite often the law is actually opposed to justice. The law does the exact opposite of what justice would actually be, and I quote, "for the sake of social cohesion." And that's when I realized I was done, because I was going into it to see justice served, not to have justice brushed under the rug for the sake of social cohesion. That was the last criminal justice class I took. So I really do appreciate that professor for being honest. This excuse for the sake of social cohesion, this is the excuse that's been used to rationalize so many horrible injustices, it's not even funny. In fact, this is one of the main excuses used to justify men being screwed over in family courts. But that's the system we live in. Before winning re-election in current year -1, Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau's wife's son's Liberal Party made tackling online hate speech a major priority and proposed giving social media platforms a 24-hour deadline to remove hate speech or face significant financial penalties. Yet another reason to just stop talking with these people. Move all of your conversation underground. You can still use social media to meet new people and find new friends potentially, but once you find these new friends, talk to them on other platforms. Exchange email addresses. That's actually the safest way to make sure that you'll always stay in contact. Go to a private forum. Hell, even in the private DMs on Twitter. Now, those DMs aren't private, by the way. Twitter can and does look through those. But at least the triggered lunatics that don't work for Twitter won't see them. Anything is better than having conversations out in the open where these lunatics can see and re-at them. So take all of your speech in general off of social media and move it to places where they can't see. Give them what they want. They want to silence you. Let them think that's what they did, as you just move the conversation away from them. Last September, the Canadian government doubled down on its threats to regulate online hate speech, with Canada's Minister of Infrastructure and Communities, Catherine McKenna, warning, we don't have to regulate everything, but if you can't regulate yourselves, governments will. And then they bent over for big tech. One day later, the Canadian government promised to redouble its efforts by taking action on online hate. Pierre Trudeau's wife's son has also expressed conflicting views on free speech. No, it's not conflicting. If he ever claims to support free speech, it's only because he's trying to win re-election. In October, he compared drawing Muhammad cartoons to yelling fire in a crowded movie theater and said there are limits to free speech after a terrorist attack in France, where a teacher was beheaded after showing Charlie Hebdo cartoons that depict the Prophet Muhammad. After facing heavy criticism, Pierre Trudeau's wife's son then backtracked on these anti-free speech comments and stated, I think it is more important to continue to defend freedom of expression and freedom of speech. Our artists help us to reflect and challenge our views, and they contribute to our society. It's funny how these guys only support freedom when it's starting to hurt them politically, to be against freedom, isn't it? They pretend to support it while it's useful, and then they ditch it. That's actually a textbook Republican maneuver, by the way. That is how the Republicans operate. See, I will give the Democrats credit. You give them the power to do so, and they will implement everything they promised they're gonna do. They will implement fucking everything they're telling you they're gonna do if you give them the power to do so. The Republicans, on the other hand, you give them the power to do it, and they get cold feet. See, again, the first 2 years of the Trump presidency, when the Republicans controlled every single branch of the government and failed to do anything they were promising. That's textbook Republican maneuver right there. Pretend to support something, but as soon as you got the power to actually put your money where your mouth is, just kind of forget about it. Again, textbook Republican. And right here, I will say my own view on this is when it comes to fiction, literally everything is allowed. There is no line when it comes to fiction. There is no gray area with fiction. You only get that when you involve real people. If you censor any fiction, that will destroy creativity. Because you're always going to have the cucks there. Like, oh, well, then just don't do that one thing that was banned. It doesn't work that way. If you ban one thing, everyone else who was making something that was kind of pushing the limits of that is now worried, and people are going to self-censor to avoid getting something else banned. What is even the point? If you're going to effectively censor yourself because you're scared the thing you were going to do is going to get banned anyway, is there really any difference whether or not the ban is in place at that point? It's already achieved its intended result. They've already stopped people from doing the thing without even banning it, and it's just going to spread. Yeah, sure. First, it's never the hill to die on. This is the same argument I always make, so I don't have to get into too many details on this. These cucks that are just standing, they're way behind the front lines. They're still in safety, like 100 miles away. Like, oh, we don't need to support the front lines. That's not the hill to die on. Do you really want to fight for them? And after a few times the front line gets pushed back, now it's not the hill to die on cucks are the new front line. And they are shrieking bloody murder. They're screaming to everyone behind them, like, why won't you guys help us when we need you? And everyone behind them is like, that's not the hill to die on. And so at least they always get their karma always wins. Karma always bitch slaps these motherfuckers. So at least there's a silver lining. Karma puts them in their place eventually. Now, the downside is it's way after, we've already been trampled over. But that's another silver lining, actually. Once you've already been banned and canceled, and you find a way to continue doing what you're doing underground, you're pretty much immune to being banned and canceled again. And on top of that, it's not your fight anymore. I will defend the current front line as long as I'm still behind the front line. But once I've been overrun, I don't give a fuck what happens to anyone else back there anymore. Everyone who stood by and let my hill be overrun, oh, that's not the hill to die on. As soon as they need help, I'm going to be nowhere to be found. Because my hill was already steamrolled over. I have no dog in this fight anymore. I literally have no reason to continue fighting. I have moved on and gone underground and have reestablished myself elsewhere. What the fuck do I care happens to the rest of you at that point, right? And that's a lesson that these cucks are going to learn the hard way. Critics have warned that online hate speech laws pose a threat to free speech because they risk criminalizing and jailing people for expressing controversial views. Yeah, it's almost as if free speech only exists to protect controversial views. You don't need freedom of speech to agree with those in power. You need freedom of speech to oppose them. Freedom of speech only exists for controversial stuff. But these warnings have largely fallen on deaf ears, with Canada being just one of several countries to propose or introduce hate speech laws and regulations over the last few months. Yeah, this is what happens when we've had too long of a time of peace. Most of the first world has forgotten what it's like to suffer. So this is the result. It's a bunch of dickless cocks that keep that keep giving away their few remaining freedoms for even more security that they're being tricked into thinking that they need. For example, Scotland's controversial hate crime bill, which would sanction the possession of inflammatory media and problematic social media posts, is looking increasingly likely to pass. And Norway recently passed a new law under which people can be jailed for hate speech in private conversations. In private conversations, people, once again, stop even talking to these regressive NPC lunatics. Cut them out of your life completely. As soon as you recognize someone for one of these regressive NPC lunatics, stop interacting with them. Segregation is the only way forward at this point. Oh man, I am so excited to tell you guys right now that finally, after about a year of build-up and shilling, we have launched Blade Devil on Indiegogo, and so far it is doing so well thanks to awesome people like you. If you haven't backed it yet, then please check the links in the description and check out Blade Devil on Indiegogo. You will not be disappointed. Looking forward to seeing you there.